Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Tammy Talk Show, where I am Tammy. I'm your host. I thank you all for joining us on today. We have a very, very good hot topic today. Some things that we're going to get educated on and some things that are going to help us. My topic tonight is Your Vote Counts.
Yes, it does.
Whether you believe it or not, your vote counts. My guest that I have here tonight is Nathaniel Crawford. He is here to share some information with us. Say hello to my audience. Audience, say hello to Nathan.
Hello,
Nathan.
everyone. Hello.
Yes, we're so glad to have you here, Nate.
So glad to be here.
Just share with us and give us some information because I know you are very gifted and knowing the political side of things and to help us to learn more about it. Mm-hmm. First of all, I would like for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, first, Tammy, I would like to thank you for having me on the show. My name is Nathaniel Crawford. I am a former resident of Detroit, born and raised. So shout out to all my Detroit people in Michigan. I am also a former soldier and veteran, as well as the CEO of the Deja T. Crawford Foundation, which is a nonprofit where we raise money for scholarships for journalism and performing arts students. Other than that, I am a huge historian, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that the only way that they can hide things from us is with the lack of knowledge. So that's me pretty much in a nutshell.
Okay. I'm sure my audience are very interested in what you have to say on tonight. This is something that we all need to know because we know that we're coming up into the election very soon, and we all going to need to really know what's next and what we need to do in order to change the direction that America is going in if we want change. First thing I want to ask you is, what made you interested in the voting process?
So again, thank you for having me on to talk about that, something I am very passionate about. The thing that makes me the most interested about the voting process is the fact that my daughter Deja, who unfortunately passed away, was so passionate about voting. She realized at an early age that the only way we could affect change is by our vote. And her friends and her people that she was friends with at school and the different groups that she belonged to were so adamant about rocking the vote, is what they called it back then. They were so adamant about getting the information out there. So that's first. My second reason for being so passionate about it is because I had a economics teacher at Laura F. Osborne High School, where I went to school in Detroit. Shout out to all the Knights out there that might be watching. We had an economics teacher named Mr. Ford. Out of respect, I couldn't tell you what his first name is to this day because we didn't call them by their first names. Mr. Ford taught us what was in our severely outdated economics textbooks, but he also taught us the real deal, is how he taught us what was hidden from the African American community at that time. So between the passion that he put in us for just civil rights and for knowing how to affect change, one area, and then my daughter is the other.
Okay. Beautiful. We know that it took a long time for Black people to be able to vote.
Yes, it did.
And what can you tell us about the inequality of voting?
Well, the first thing that I need to point out is, as Alberta Tinsley Talabi pointed out when she was on your show a couple of weeks ago, she talked about Carter G. Woodson. Well, in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson has a quote where he says, "When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions." When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. So the reason that is important to your question is because we never were supposed to have the right to vote. So it was never taught to us. It wasn't a part of the African American curriculum in schools. It was not a part of even the African American collegiate experience. It was not there either. That information was held for other communities other than ours. So that's one part of the inequality. But just to give you some statistics about the inequalities that we did have to actually face. So, for example, we didn't get the right to vote as Black people until the Civil Rights Act of 1965, the Civil Rights Voting Act, excuse me, of 1965.
Yeah.
That breaks down to this, because it wasn't enforced in 65. And even if it was enforced in some areas in the North, for example, it wasn't enforced in the South. So it wasn't until really 1969 that if you were 21 and over, you could vote as an African American male or female. Now, what does that equate to? So if you were 21 in 1969, even though Blacks got the right to vote in 65, you did not have the right to vote.
Wow.
You did not have the right to vote because although you may have graduated from high school, the voting age at that time was 21. So that was another way that they separated us from the vote. Also, even to this day, if you are 51 years of age or older and you are Black, either your mother or father could vote. Neither one. Fast forward, when you deal with all of the soldiers who fought and died, were African American, when you break it all down, over 2.5 million African American soldiers died in all of the wars that have been fought between the Revolutionary War all the way up to the Vietnam War. And all of them fought and died never having the right to vote until 1965. 2 million fought, and over half of those, right about 57,951 that were accounted for. That doesn't count the missing or the killed in action.
Wow.
That's just what we have on record. And there's some wars, like the Spanish-American War, they didn't even count the African Americans who died at that time because we were worthless at that point. So those are just some of the inequalities that we dealt with. And you look at even in today's such tumultuous times, over 200,000 people have died from COVID or have been affected to the point where they're not going to be able to cast a vote. Their votes were so, and that's people of all races. So there has always been something that has kept us from the ballot box in one way or another. Even if you are a Caucasian female, Caucasian women didn't get the right to vote until 1920, and the men would block the doors and would not even let them in. So there's massive inequality. So that's another reason why it's so important for us to rock out with the vote now, because now we have no excuse. We have every right and reason to be there.
None whatsoever. When I have a conversation with people that are telling me in the last election that they didn't vote, I give them the side eye like, really? You didn't vote, so you was part of what we're facing now because you didn't vote?
Absolutely. So what a lot of people don't understand is that without your vote, you cannot affect change.
Right.
100 million. Now, listen to this number. 100 million registered voters did not vote in the 2016 election. That number is higher than the amount of Republicans, Democrats, and other that voted in the whole thing. So the biggest voting party were the non-voters.
Wow.
And it's so key and important how big that number is because, for example, Michigan became a swing state in 2016, which it had never been a swing state before. True. It had always been a Democratic or blue state. Donald Trump won the state of Michigan by less than 2 votes per precinct in the state of Michigan. So what that number breaks down to is Hillary lost the state of Michigan by less than 11,000 votes in a state of about 8 million people at the time.
Wow.
Your vote matters.
It counts. It matters. Come on, people. Please listen to what Nate is saying tonight. Your vote count.
Yes, it does.
You can go in and put it in so we can make things happen and make things change, because too much is going on for us to be quiet.
Too much.
And many people have fought for this, died for this. And we got an opportunity to vote. We need to vote. We need to go on to the ballot and do what we got to do. Like I told my children when they turn 18, I said, okay, to the box we going, man. We all going. So, six coming from.
It's so funny you mentioned that. When they turn 18, you're rushing them to the ballot box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that in most states, if you are 17 and a half, you can register to vote and cast a ballot as long as your birthday falls during the election cycle. So a lot of people were confused when Deja voted. Deja voted at 17. Her birthday came around after she had registered. And they said, well, wait, how could she vote? She's not 18 yet. It depends on the laws of your state.
Wow. We got to do some research on the state here in Georgia then, because my nieces and nephews around that age, honey, they going to vote.
Absolutely.
This year. So I'm going to find that out right there. Okay. My next question is, okay, based on the history of voting, most Black people are Democrats.
Yes.
We are encouraged to vote Democrat. We receive the side eye if we don't vote Democrat. So what is the reason behind that?
Okay, so the first misconception, well, there are many misconceptions about voting, but the first one is exactly what you just said. If we live in a Democratic area, we're supposed to vote Democrat. If we live in a Republican area, we're supposed to vote Republican. That is a misconception, because you can do what's called a split ticket. You do not have to go into that polling booth and select all Democrat down one side or all Republican down the other side. I can vote for Donald Trump for president and then vote for Cory Booker for Senate, even though Trump's a Republican and Cory Booker is a Democrat. You do not have to vote the entire ticket at all.
Okay.
So that's first and foremost. Secondly, the way that it breaks down, and there's a lot of misconception about this as well, because not all history is fair.
Okay.
Some history will tell you that the reason for the Blacks being Democrats is because Democrats have always been for the poor people and Republicans have always been for the rich people. That's another falsehood. So the way that it truly breaks down is that a lot of people don't realize Lincoln and all of the constituency that he had that fought for the freeing of the slaves were all Republican. They were not Democrats. They were Republicans in the North. It was the Democrats that wanted to keep slavery that were strong in the South. Once the slaves were freed and the Great Migration happened, which the Great Migration, or during the Reconstruction period, as we know, started in 1865 and didn't end truly end until the 1970s. But early on, as the Black people started to leave the South, once they were free, they were Democrats in the South at the time, or that's all that they knew. So when they came up north, they continued being Democrats, even though they did not have the right to vote. They carried themselves as Democrats until they got north and they learned, okay, wait, you mean the Democratic Party is who oppressed us? They were the ones against us. And so at that point, you had a mass quantity of Blacks that wanted to be or live a Republican lifestyle. And once the right to vote did come around, we had been so beat and battered by both sides that a lot of the Black people followed whatever their lineage was. Grandma and them were Democrats, so I'm gonna be a Democrat. But
Right.
then why? And a lot of people give FDR a lot of credit for things that historically he does not deserve credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Delano Roosevelt did get America out of the Great Depression. Yes, he did. He served multiple terms, 16 years total. He is the reason that we have effective term limits on the presidency from now on. However, when Truman took office after he did, what Truman realized was that the New Deal that FDR passed to get us out of the Great Depression only favored the Caucasian community more so than the African American community. Now, he was a Republican. So, of course, he's supposed to take care of who? His people. Well, when Truman got into office, Truman tried to create what he called the real deal. And what the real deal was supposed to do was make it an evil playing field when it came to the benefits that were given to people coming out of the wars and coming out of the Depression. Well, he was a country boy from Missouri, and he was a Republican. And he did that. His entire party turned their backs on him to assure that he would not be a two-term president. And when they did that, you saw the great flip, is what some political studies will call it. You saw a great flip of the South going Republican to shame him, and the North at that point had no choice but to become Democrat. Now, you also have redlining that I know some of us may have heard about. Redlining was a tactic used during the Civil Rights era, where we as Black people and other minorities were only allowed to live in certain literal red-lined zones. Yeah. And they made those zones Democratic. That's where you get white flight. So when white flight comes into play, you had all of these suburban areas that we weren't allowed to go into open up, and those areas were all zoned as Republican. So it forced the Democratic Party on the African American and other minority communities rather than allowing us to expand. Yeah. So that's why the bulk and majority of minorities are Democrat versus Republican. Now, don't get me wrong. There you have a lot of Spanish Republicans, Black. I know some very good, prominent, strong Black or African American Republicans, but they are a minority amongst their party. Okay. So, the next thing I want to say is how do you feel about the state that America is in right now? It's sad. It's as a veteran, I never thought that I would see this America. I thought we were past that. I thought that we were well beyond the state of inequality and the racial divide that we're in. Obviously, the Supreme Court thought that also when they overturned the Civil Rights Act in 2018. I believe that they did that because they felt that, and this is the gospel according to Nate, I believe that they did that because they felt that we were past it also. Yeah. We don't need that old law on the books. Let it go. Everybody's fine. Nobody's going to act crazy. Nobody's going to revert back to the past. Yeah. However, look at where we are. Look where we are. It is definitely a situation where, we have to have the talk. We're talking about voting right now, but there's a lot of other talks we have to talk about with our kids and with our friends and ourselves so that we can make it home and so that we can make it to the ballot box. Because if we get killed by the police or anybody else, then that's another vote that does not get passed. That's another family devastated. That's another life that's gone. And so I'm very sad about the state of affairs today, having fought for this country and known so many that died for it. Right. So we could be beyond where we are. Yes. I'm so afraid of it too, because I have 3 young men. Yes, ma'am. And
If they ever call me and say, "Mom, the cops got me," it's gonna. I would be terrified because I'm gonna turn out to be a different woman then.
Trust me, having there, I completely understand.
Yeah.
Even that in itself, Tammy, that also translates to the vote. What a lot of people don't realize is those small elections that you have in your local cities and states that nobody pays attention to.
Yes.
A lot of the time, those elections are your chiefs of police.
Right.
And a lot of them run uncontested because no one goes out. No one turns up. No one we don't support somebody that looks like us to take that vote, take that person down. We have to vote not just for the big elections in November. We have to vote for even our small ones because that's the only way that we're going to break that chain and get people in the police department of authority that look like you and I.
Yes, that's so true. And that's why I promoted that on this show. This election year here in Georgia, it's time for us to do a local. And then we can go federal, however else we got to go. But let's get it local right. As long as we get that right and then keep on moving up the chain of command in the votes. Absolutely. Okay, the next question is, usually when you go to vote, there are people waiting outside to tell you what line to get in. And then when you get in there, they tell you to just vote straight across or whichever party you want to vote for. They'll tell you to do that. But how do you recommend we do that?
So, like I said in the beginning, you can vote a split ticket. No one is in that ballot box except you and the box. So you can vote for whoever you choose to vote for. If you want to go line by line, tick by tick, whether it's a push button machine or whether it's the old school with the levers, you don't have to just push one thing. You can vote your ballot. That is your ballot. That is your ballot, and you can vote it however you choose to. So that's number one. Number two, over here on the East Coast, we have a funny thing that we say when it comes to travel. One thing a person in New York who is on their way to work or dealing with the hustle and bustle of the city, one thing we hate doing is stopping for tourists that asked us, "Hey, do you know how to get to so-and-so? Or do you know where this is? Do you know where that is?" And so there's actual commercials over here. The transit authority airs that are called "Know Before You Go."
Yes.
Know before you go. So the reason that I brought that up is because with your vote, you need to know before you go. Do your research on the people that you're voting for that are running for whatever the various positions are in your area. If it's your senator or your state representative, if it's your mayor, your chief of police, research them and know their names and understand that you have the right to vote for whoever you choose. So no matter who's politicizing at the poll center, trying to hand you pamphlets and sway your vote one way or the other, if you already have and are armed with your information before you get there, then you don't have to worry about being swayed by that. Now, I have a funny example of not paying attention to your vote can affect a major change that you might not like.
Okay.
In the Senate race, the Senate primary in 2010 in South Carolina, the favorite, his name was Senator DeMint. Senator DeMint had ran almost uncontested successfully for 30, 40 years. All of a sudden,
I remember that. Yes.
He lost to somebody named, now listen to the name, Alvin Green. Now, not only does Alvin's name, because his first name begins with an A, that put him at the top of the ticket, because at the time, the South Carolina ticket was alphabetized. But he also won off of legitimate name recognition from our dear brother, the Reverend Dr. Al Green, because subconsciously, when people go to the polling booth and they saw it, they weren't paying attention. This man, Senator, he was briefly Senator Alvin Green, won the vote by over 70%. He annihilated the other Senator DeMint, to the point where they actually tried to have a follow-up election to prove that he wasn't the candidate of choice. Now, he didn't win the overall election. He won the primary, but he did not get to carry on into DC. But look at what happens when you don't pay attention.
That's right.
You have to know before you go. You have to watch what you're pushing inside those machines.
Yes, you do.
Yes, the electronic machines, sometimes they can be off a little bit. So you may think that you're pushing one for one person, and it actually will pull up for another candidate that you did not want to vote for. So before you leave that booth, make sure you look at all your lights. Make sure you look at your ballot and make sure that only what you see that has a light next to that name, that is exactly who you plan to vote for. Shout out to Al Green.
Yes. Oh, Al got it.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
That was a good one. I love Al Green songs, though. Yeah. Okay. Number 5. I have one more question. I have several I want to ask you, but this is an important one. Very important question right here. Very important. There have been a lot of discussion about the absentee ballot.
Yes, there have.
The mail-in votes. If someone decides to do an absentee mail-in, what's the most important information for them to know?
Okay. I am so glad you asked that question because, again, it is in the media every day. We saw them removing the mailboxes and putting lock boxes on the mailboxes and so on and so forth. So what do? Well, let me give you and your audience the biggest resource in knowing before you go. www.vote.gov. It is just that simple. www.vote.gov.
Yeah.
If you don't find information there, you can find other information that will lead you to voter registration at www.usa.gov.
Okay.
Ridiculously drawn out websites. They're not complicated. When you go to vote.gov, a drop down for your state is there.
Okay.
You select your state, and it gives you 100% of the voting rules for your state.
Okay.
Now, you might think, why is that important? Or why does that happen? Like, we're all one country. Why is everybody different? And that's what makes the voting act itself so confusing. Yeah. Well, the reason is because the founding fathers, in all of their glory, gave each state the right to assign their own voting rules, laws, and regulations. Okay. So what Georgia is doing, is not doing. What Illinois is doing, California is not doing, because everybody has different governors. Everybody appoints different secretaries of state or the secretaries of the voting commission, and everybody does what? They want to leave their mark on history or of what they did. So you have a lot of states that have very archaic rules and regulations to their voting system, which deals in voter suppression. But as far as the mail-in ballot goes, the one thing that people need to understand and realize is those are time sensitive. Okay. They are very, very time sensitive. Okay. You have to request it in accordance with the time frame for your state. You have to return it in accordance with the time frame for your state.
Okay.
In some states, for example, here in New Jersey, our postage is paid for our mail-in or our absentee ballots. Okay. Whereas other states, it's a partial pay, and you have to add stamps. So what I've been telling people that I've talked to about this subject, this election is too important to have 50 cents or however much a stamp costs stop your vote from counting. Right. So just go ahead, put 2 stamps on there. It's less than $1. We can waste $1 on a whole lot more. Put a couple steps on there to make sure that it gets to where it has to go.
That's right.
If you don't trust the mail-in system, because you might watch the news a lot, or you may know or be friends or families with, or be a postal carrier yourself, or know someone that is affected by all of this, then what you can also do is you can fill out your absentee ballot and you can hand carry it into your county clerk's office. Okay. Now, again, that is on a state-by-state basis. They, especially with COVID-19, a lot of these places have very limited hours. So you, again, know before you go. And again, vote.gov, USA.gov, make sure you're registered, make sure you go ahead and get that vote in, and make sure it counts. Because you can mail it thinking that, okay, well, the election is not till November 3rd. I'll mail it on the 1st. That vote's not going to count. It's never going to get there.
It's not.
Know the timelines for sure.
That's right. And we have it up on the Tammy Talk Show, the website that you can go to, and you go there. We have already put it up on the screen, so you just look it up. Go ahead and put your vote in, because every vote counts.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it do. And even with the post office too. I used to work at the post office.
That's right. Yeah, you did.
In the post office, working there, we had a system. Everybody got their mail. You know, if something happened to the mail or something in the machine, we wrote a letter. But the way they have these machines now, so high tech and so wonderfully, and put everything in the category it's supposed to go in. I used to work in there. I used to work there 12 hours. Come on. I think it was 24 hours. But we did well there.
In recollection, I remember you worked the sorting machines. You know, they took a lot of those out.
Yeah. And the sorting machine was the machine that put it in the category to the address to where it's going so it won't get lost and all that stuff. Come on. Yeah. Talk to somebody that didn't work at the post office.
They are definitely trying to stack the deck.
Right.
Definitely being stacked for sure.
But please vote. Vote.
Have to vote.
Okay, we've seen how our democracy have taken I'll say a big kick on how the government is playing the games of voting before November gets here. If someone has an issue with their vote, what should they do?
If someone has an issue with their vote, as far as you mean, like when they get there, they're having problems with the machine, or before you finish, there are poll workers there whose primarily their only job, the ones in front of house at the polling center, their only job is to assure that people have their questions answered if they have problems with the machines, or if they just have problems with the overall electoral process itself. Because a lot of people, no matter how we think, we've been able to vote since 65. You have first-time voters of all ages in every election. So there are people who are legitimate poll workers who will have their badges available with their IDs and everything on there that will let you know exactly that they're there to help you. They'll let you know that they're there to answer any questions that you have. So if you did have a problem or something like that, then you are more than able to reach out to them before you finish casting that vote. Because once you swipe or once you close it out and you leave, you cannot change it at that point.
Wow.
You have to do it before you finish.
That's true. That's true. You have to make sure it is done before you leave. Hear what he say, make sure you have everything done before you leave, so your will count. Okay, we saw what happened during the last election. Well, the popular vote was more than the electoral vote, but the electoral vote is what won the presidency. What is the Electoral College and how does it impact the votes?
All right. So I knew you were going to ask that question. And that is a very loaded question, by the way. I'll put it like this. The Electoral College is one of the most misunderstood parts of law exist in this country. It literally has confused so many politicians. So it's confused so many people so much that even a lot of politicians don't understand it.
Wow.
So I am going now. I'm pulling the Tammy. I got to put my glasses on because I got to read right now.
Okay.
So the Electoral College is called the Great Compromise. The Great Compromise was a part of the 1789 Congressional Congress. Congressional Convention, where they actually laid out the laws and wrote everything out.
Okay.
At that convention, they decided how we were going to vote and how the Constitution was actually going to work for the country. Okay. So the Electoral College was created by the Founding Fathers to ensure that small states with less population had equal voting representation as larger states that have larger populations. There are 538 electoral votes to be won by the presidential candidates, and the one who surpasses 270 wins. Each elector is supposed to vote based on the popular vote. Okay. And that does happen in Maine and Nebraska, where the electors who are selected by either the people that do vote, because in some states you vote for your the members of the Electoral College. In other states, those people are appointed. Those electors are appointed. Okay. So they're supposed to vote based on their districts or their regions or their areas. However, they pledge allegiance to their parties before they even get into being in the position of an elector. That being the case, 48 out of the 50 states have what's called the winner-take-all law. What the winner-take-all law says is that whoever wins the popular vote gets all of that state's electoral votes. Okay. So the way that breaks down, let me take it a step further. The popular vote in Georgia says Hillary wins. However, the electors, if the electors are looking at the possibility of whether it's voter fraud, whether it's an issue, the electors do have the power to say, no, the margin's too close. So you know what? We're going to go with the other candidate. The electors are supposed to be people of the highest standards who are going to make the best decisions for the country and for its people. So the popular vote gives them an idea of what their people want, and then the electors cast their electoral votes to actually elect the president. Okay. All right. I hope I explained that.
You explained it very
well. Because it's very confusing. It really can be. It really can be.
Because when in 2016, when all the votes got, tallied for the president to get in, when they said all of that, and I know a lot of people was confused by that. We're like, well, what's going on here? And how is it this way? So you explained it very well. So those that are listening now understand how it happened. And so now, go ahead.
In all fairness, a lot of people are against the Electoral College because they either don't understand it or they don't think it's fair. Well, how does the winner take all? What if the people want the other way? 5 times in U.S. history, the person who won the popular vote did not win the presidency. However, we also have to look at something called gerrymandering when that comes up. So what gerrymandering is it happens in Michigan all the time, and it's supposed to be against the law. Shame on Michigan. But what gerrymandering is when based on your neighborhood, If you are, if you have major Republican representation in your neighborhood,
okay,
and based on maybe an influx or influx of the economy, or maybe it's good years, bad years, whatever, that area starts to become a little bit more Democrat than Republican. What the parties will do is realign the district zones and say, okay, well, if this much was Democrat and now it has shrunken down to only this much, well, we're just going to make this the Democratic zone and we're going to realign it outside. And so that's all Republican, and we can have all of our Democratic votes in here to where Democrats will have the majority in that district. So what that does is that actually takes away the Republicans' right to swing the vote if they wanted to for their candidate. So that's why the Electoral College is important, because you have to have proper representation for all the people, whether it's Maine with its 4 electoral votes or California with their 55. Everybody has the right to have proper representation in DC, and the Electoral College assures that every person's vote will matter.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm gonna clap my hand on that. Yes, they got the understanding of it all. It has been a while since I've been in school. I've really been into learning all this stuff, but when I got it, I got it. Absolutely. And I went into this full force, like I'll say about 10 years ago. I said, I need to know. I need to know what's going on. I don't want to be just voting and don't know what I'm doing. And there's a lot of people that are listening to the show today that didn't know. And now they're getting some education on the importance of it and why this happened and why that happened. So now when they go to the polls, they'll be able to vote knowing that they know what they are doing and knowing what our government is doing too.
Absolutely. You have to vote with confidence.
Doing, huh?
You have to vote with confidence. You have to have confidence when you vote. You have to understand and know that you matter. Your vote matters. Right. We study for tests. We study for job interviews. We study for whenever there's a new initiative in our workplace, or whenever the Kardashians have a new kid, we are all over that. We need to be all over what actually matters. Like the old adage goes, the old adage used to say, how do you hide something from, it used to just be a black man, but in today's generation, how do you hide something from the people? You put it in a book, because they're not going to read it. We have to prove our government wrong. We have to prove them wrong and turn out in great numbers. Because if we do not, and I know we're supposed to save this, but there's a thing that I want you guys to research, those that will, called The Permanent Campaign. The Permanent Campaign is a book that was written in 1982 by the then politician Sidney Blumenthal. And ever since then, during the Reagan administration, all politicians, Republican and Democrat, have been setting up to do what is known as the Permanent Campaign. To just, without giving out too much, I want you guys to know something. When Trump was elected president, once after the inauguration was over and the Obamas had left and all the pomp and circumstance went away and he got back to the White House, the first thing he did was sign the paperwork for his re-election campaign for this election.
Wow.
He hadn't been president an hour, and he had already signed the paperwork necessary to put his name in for this election. It's called the Permanent Campaign. It is very serious. And if we don't have a landslide voter turnout in November, it's going to be some problems getting him out of there.
Yeah, it is. Did you hear us? Yeah, it is. And that's what I'm gonna say. Oh yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
We can really tell that. But I'm so glad you're on the show today, Nate, because I see a lot of comments and things. People are really enjoying this and they're really getting some information. As I always say on my show, we need to know.
We need to know
things we need to know.
That's
what
right.
you know, once you know what you got to do, and you know how you got to do it. So I'm just so glad you're here sharing with us and helping educate us on some things that we didn't understand or may not know. You may not know. But here's my next question. Okay, okay, I got that one. When the media talks about battleground states, what do that mean?
Right, because they talk to us as if everybody knows all of this stuff, and not everybody is an Arthur Miller, my grandfather, or Ruthie Miller, my grandmother, who woke up at the crack every day, Monday through Sunday, and watched the news from 4 in the morning until afternoon. A lot of us, the media talks to you like you are supposed to know these things, but they don't explain. And the problem with that is, again, the old adages, the old folks, they were on to something when they used to tell us all of those things. Believe half of what you see and none of what you heard. You have to research and know yourself. Like the Bible says, study to show yourself approved, so that you can be that workman that can rightly divide the word of truth. In order to do that, you have to know. So I thank you for asking the questions that you've asked, but especially this one. Battleground states are states that could go either way to either candidate. No one has a clear win for those states' electoral votes or the popular vote in those states. Now, that is something else monumental that happened in the 2016 election. Michigan became a battleground state, and it had never been one before. And what usually happens is the campaign financiers don't have the candidates go to states that they are assured to win. So you'll never see a Republican candidate campaigning in California, because California historically always Democrat. You'll never see a Democrat going extra hard for the vote in Indiana. Indiana has always been, majority of the time, either red or it has been a swing state. It was a swing state also in 2016. So the swing states are places where they have to focus, so that when you hear about them, oh, we're going to Iowa this week. Oh, we'll be down in Florida. We're going to this state, that state. Those are the reasons that they go there, is because they're trying to swing the vote their way. Hillary did not go to Michigan in 2016. Trump did. And there we have it. The eyes have it, as they say.
And there it is. Yes. Wow. I am enjoying this conversation, and I want to tell the audience that we're going to continue the conversation on Sunday.
Yay!
We have more information that we want to share with you all.
Yes.
Things that we want to tell you all. I think one of the things, Nate touched on it a little bit, as I know he was saying, I don't want to go into it right now because talking about also on Sunday. So we want you all to tune in with us on Sunday evening at 6:30, where we will be continuing this conversation and giving you more information about voting and why it is important to vote this year. I'm trying to tell everybody that I know, please go out and vote. I know that we're not trying to tell y'all which way to vote, but I'm trying to tell y'all which way to vote without telling y'all which way to vote.
That's right. It's it's not one party. It's not one party or another. It's just exercise your right. Too many people have fought and died. All of our grandmothers worked at polling centers and counted votes, but couldn't cast one.
Right.
Think about that. Like they were actually there making whatever the little bit of money is that they pay poll workers, and they could not even vote on their own. So now everyone has the right to vote. Everyone can vote. There's nobody that's going to kick you out of a polling center. There's nobody that's going to stop you at the door. Vote, vote. If you can't tune in on Sunday, where we'll be digging into the actual voting process, and we'll be digging into who can vote and who can't, putting those misconceptions to bed. If you can't join in, again, vote.gov, USA.gov, register and rock your vote. Too many people have died this year that will not be able to vote. Vote for them. You know somebody who got COVID that passed, vote in their honor. Do this for someone else if you don't care enough yourself. But this is one of the most important elections in U.S. history.
And you all know why we are saying this is an important vote to vote this year, because we all see the situation that we're in. You see which direction our country is going in, and we see it. And some, you know, I'm gonna say it like this: if I take these glasses off, I can hardly see anything. But when I put these glasses on, I can see clear. So I said that to say, they'll tell us one thing, and we know we see it another way, and we know we hear it another way, but they're trying to tell us it's that way. But I'm telling you this way: please go out and vote. If you don't do nothing else, vote the man in the White House out. Yeah, I said
it. and don't wait if you're going to, because a lot of people I know, they don't trust the mail because of everything that's going on. You have a lot of people who are just truly old school that are, you know, they take pride in going and casting that vote. You know, wear your mask. Of course, COVID is still real. It ain't went nowhere. It ain't took time off because it's an electoral era. Wear your mask, get your sanitizer, do what you have to do, social distance, all of that stuff. But if you're going in there, please go early. Don't wait till after work. Polling centers open at 6 a.m. Make that the one day. Treat it like Black Friday.
Yes.
Get up in the morning and go get that vote in and done. Once it's done, you don't have to do it no more. It's done and it's over with.
It's done and it's over with. I'll say to you all again, please join us on Sunday, where we will be continuing the conversation. I'd like to thank my audience for coming in on tonight. I don't know if they had any questions because we were so into the conversation as to what we were saying. But I want you all to know that we're going to give you more information. We're going to shed some more light on some things that have been in the dark. So we all see which direction that we know that this country is headed in, that we can make a difference in November to stop it, and it won't go in that direction. I'm hoping for change. I'm believing for change, and I'm believing that all the voters are going to go out there and vote. You're going to put it in, and you're going to get out. You're going to get out your bed early in the morning. You're going to be out there, like Nate said, like on Black Friday. You get up early. See, we even need to get you on here to talk about the Black Friday, what that really meant too. But anyway, we're gonna get up early in the morning. You know, go put that vote in. Stand in the line. I don't care how long it takes. Take your slippers with you. Take some slides with you. Whatever it takes. But yes, I see one of my listeners on here. One of my friends. She's saying, "Vote, vote, vote." Vote Democrat. She didn't bite her tongue. She said, vote Democrat. But I tell you, we got to make a change in this nation as to the direction that it's going in. What is happening to our young men and everything. We got to do something about that. Like I said, I got 3 young men, and I want to see my young men get old and them help me when I get older. And all that. I just want them to live a long, healthy life, not anything happening to them, cutting them off short. But I would like to thank you all for tuning in. I thank you all for taking out the time of your busy day to listen to the Tammy Talk Show.
Yes.
Those of you, I would like for you to share this page, share it with your friends, and let them hear the information. You like it and share it. Share it with some friends. Like my page. Go to the Tammy Talk Show and like the page. The numbers go up for me. They mean something also too. So help my numbers go up. Go and punch it in. Say, I like this show. I want to add my name to the show. So anytime it comes on, you'll get to see what's coming on. But join us again on Sunday, where we will be bringing you more information. I will have Nate come back and open up the panel, open up his talking, and we're going to take some questions. If any of you have some questions, please post your questions on Tammy Talk Show page, or you can post it as we're talking on the show on Sunday. If you had something tonight you wanted to say, and you get it in on Sunday, we will make sure we will answer your questions. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you, Nate, for tuning in, for coming on tonight. I love you much.
Love you too.